Coleman and Chauncey asked me to teach on worship, and was glad to bring my dudes Jack and Rocco to lead us. In fact, they're going to come back for a couple more songs when we're done. Worship is a response. Worship is a response to something, and so I want us to be able to respond after you hear from God's word and hopefully reflect on the greatness of God, and then we can respond to His good word to us. And so they'll be back up. Here's my definition. Worship is the continuous outpouring of your life towards something that you think is worth it. Okay, so worship is the continuous outpouring of your life to a thing that you think is worth it. It's worth your energy. It's worth your time. It's worth your money. It's worth your body, your life. It's worth your talents, your focus. It's the thing that you think is worth it. And everyone worships. It's not just a religious thing. If that's the definition, if pouring out our hearts, pouring out our life to something is what worship is, then it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not, and atheist, agnostic, Baptist, Buddhist, you are a worshiper. It's the thing we give our life to. The first 26 years of my life, I was around professional sports. It was the thing that I knew. It was the thing that was worth it to me. My dad was still is 6 decades of professional baseball, and so it was the thing of highest value to me. It was what I gained worth from, applause and accomplishments. It was the thing that I knew. I literally didn't know anything else. If you've ever, if you were in a military family or something like that, that's what being in professional sports is like. You're in this kind of subculture where nothing else matters. The outside world isn't real. What's real is the only thing you know, and that's going to the ballpark literally every day with your dad. And then I signed with Michigan State to play football, and because, well, that's a long story. But one of the most intimidating, terrifying, horrible things that I ever had to do was to walk into Nick Saban's office and tell him I was leaving to go play professional baseball myself. But what my life was centered around was my performance and my accomplishments. What had most value to me, what was most worth my worship, was that. And I had this moment. I had gotten married. I'm 20. How old am I? I'm 24 or 5 at the time, and I'm playing baseball I'm in Atlantic City, and nothing has gone well. Career is not going well. Marriage is not going well. And we had this rented house on the beach. And so I walked out to the beach with my Bible, and I was going to have a heart-to-heart with the Lord. We were going to talk. God and I were going to talk about what was going on in my life. I thought at the time, I wouldn't have said this out loud, but this was the way in which I lived the Christian life. I would have thought that being a Christian meant God was going to give me the thing that I really worshiped. The thing that I really worshiped, the thing that I really wanted, God's job was to give me that thing that I wanted more than I wanted Him. And so that was essentially my prayer. If you've ever read the Psalms, and you read some of David's prayers in the Psalms, it's like this really honest prayer. They're prayers that give us permission to have real honest prayers with God. But that's what I asked the Lord. I said, what do I get with all this Christian stuff? I'm a Christian. My marriage is not going well. My career is not going well. What do I get with being a Christian? And I'll never forget it. It's one of the most profound moments of my life. But there on the beach, God said, you get me. That I'm the greatest. I'm the thing of highest value. I'm the thing that's worth your worship and your life, and nothing else. And that was such a profound moment for me. Literally, my marriage was changed from that moment. My career, unfortunately, did not change from that moment. Didn't get any better. But I ended up as a pastor in Fort Worth, Texas. But what was so profound about that moment is that I finally saw how big God is, and so everything else looked tiny. Everything else in my life looked small compared to the bigness and greatness of God. Now God was worth my whole life, and He alone is worthy of our worship. And so we were made to worship. Everyone worships. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like, but I have to start with this. When you don't worship God, 2 things happen. Okay, when you don't worship God, but you worship something else, because we all worship, you were made to worship, so you're going to give your life to something. If it's not God, two things will happen. You will de-God God, and you will dehumanize yourself. Okay, so you will de-God God, you will dehumanize yourself. You will de-God God. God is God. There is no other God. And so it goes bad for you when we begin to take God off the throne, we put something else up there. And then when you worship something less than God, since you were made to worship him, you are dehumanizing yourself. So Romans 12, verses 1 and 2, it says, present your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. So we said at the beginning, Mitchell said, hey, the worship isn't just singing. All of your life is worship, right? It's the continuous outpouring of your life. And this is what Romans 12 is saying. We are to present our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is our spiritual act of worship. And so this means that everything about you, your time and your energy, and again, your body, your thoughts, your feelings, what you do, all of that is meant to be in worship unto God. So you can literally study unto the Lord, or you can study unto something else, in worship of something else. You can play unto the Lord, or you can play unto something else. In fact, you will. You will either play, study, think, feel, live your life unto the Lord, or you will do it unto something else. You can be owned by your feelings and unhealthy thought patterns, or you can think and feel unto the Lord and take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. Literally everything that we do, it's done either unto the Lord or something else. And when we do it unto something else, we're essentially de-godding God. That's what sin is. Sin isn't God gave us some rules, we did a bad thing, we should get a slap on the wrist. No, sin is de-godding God. Now, if we de-god God and we worship something else, watch what happens. If we were to present our body as a living sacrifice, that's worship. Think about what happens when you worship something else. If you worship your work or trying to gain money, you might present your body as a living sacrifice to a job, right? Some of your dads did that. It's something that you give your life up to your work. Maybe you worship beauty or fitness. And so you present your body as a living sacrifice to the gym, to some sort of exercise program. You sacrifice for that. That's worship. Maybe you're a young woman who worships the attention and affection of men. And if a woman was to do that, she might present her body as a living sacrifice in worship of that man. Man can do this to a woman as well. We are pouring out, we are giving our body up for something in worship that is not unto God, but unto something else. Now, it's not that those things are necessarily bad, though some of them are, but working out, working hard, those things aren't bad. It's the continuous outpouring of it. It's the thing that we give our life to. Right? We're doing it unto, not God, but something else. And it's a de-godding of God because only God is worthy of our whole life. But then it's also dehumanizing for you to worship anything less than God. You become less than human, less than you are, when you worship something else that is not God. Okay? When you love something more than God, you're acting less than human. Think of this. A dude who looks at pornography in his phone dehumanizes himself and her, whoever he's looking at. An athlete who worships performance and achievement dehumanizes himself. A gal who presents her body as a living sacrifice to some 20-year-old kid dehumanizes herself in the process. We're not just de-godding God when we worship something else, we dehumanize ourselves. Think about that. Just as athletes, you worship. If you worship performance, achievement, if it's about you. I was just thinking about this, even on my way over here, and some of my life and what that looked like. If all you is that all you are? Here's my question: is that all you are? Is all you are is just an athlete? Is all you are just a body? Is all you are just someone who performs, somebody who achieves? Is that all that you're made up of? Are you so fragile that your identity only consists in your performance or what you accomplish today or tomorrow or the next day? Aren't you more than that? It's a dehumanization of who God has made you. You're far more than just what you can perform or accomplish. And so it dehumanizes us because we actually become what we worship. This is just a theological reality. You become what you worship. So there's in the Psalms, for example, the psalmist will say, these idols that people make that represent gods, they're made of silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but do not speak. They have eyes but do not see. They have ears but do not hear. Hands that don't feel. Feet that don't walk. And then listen, those who make them become like them. That we essentially become what we worship. We become, if all we are is what we do in our body, if all we are is what we achieve or perform, then we become that. That's all that we become. And we were created in the image of God to worship God, and so we're meant to worship Him, become like Him. And when we're focused on things less than God, we become less than that image that God has made us in. We become like the kids that try to mimic their favorite players. We're trying to swing like Bryce Harper. We're trying to pop threes like Steph Curry. We become what we worship. And so the worship of God then centers us and rehumanizes us. You become all that you were meant to be in worship of God. Everything else is less than you are. You are far too worthy to worship something less than God. And when we worship God, it rehumanizes us. It centers us. Right? If you want to know who you are, worship Jesus. You'll have a better idea of who you are. If you want to feel confident and at peace in the midst of chaos, worship Jesus. And you begin to be more confident in those spaces where you felt perhaps insecure. It's vitally important that we worship what we were made to worship, because only God is worth your worship. Only God is worth your worship. And so here's the good news of the gospel. So Christianity, I think sometimes we kind of reduce Christianity to, I'm a bad person, I'm a sinner, Jesus died on the cross for my sins. It's far more than that. Far more than that. In the gospel, Jesus is rehumanizing us. I mean, you can see that. You can see that in the Gospels. Like when he's walking around, he's meeting people, right? The poor, the outcast, the sick, the lame, the whatever. What is he? They're dehumanized. They're outcasts. And he gives them value. He gives them significance. He's rehumanizing us. He's restoring them in the gospel. Sin didn't just make us bad people. It made us less than we were created to be. And so Jesus isn't just forgiving us of sin. He's trying to restore us to what we were meant to be. And so Jesus is God giving us our humanity back. Literally, in the gospel, Jesus is God, but also fully man, right? So fully God, fully man, God becomes man. It's kind of a crazy reality that the scriptures teach, that Jesus is fully God and yet fully human, literally fully human. So you read the stories of Jesus and he gets tired. Why? Because he's human. And he gets sad. Why? Because he's human. He gets hungry. He gets thirsty. Because he's actually fully human. Jesus knew what it was like to be you. He knows what it's like to be you. He knows what it's like to be human. And yet in all of his humanity, he did what we don't do. He was fully dependent on the Father in every scenario, in every place. He would say things like, I don't do anything unless the Father tells me. I don't say anything unless the Father tells me to say it. Right? In his tiredness, he turned to the Father. In his hunger, he trusted the Father. Everything he did in his humanity was dependent perfectly on the Father. And so he models this sort of perfect humanity for us. So in that sense, he's rehumanizing us. But then even more than that, his death on the cross and resurrection is a restoration of giving us new life as well. It is not just that you have been forgiven to try to go figure life out. The gospel Christianity is far more amazing than that. It is that in the gospel, in the death and resurrection of Jesus, he's giving you resurrection and new life as well. Right? The cross isn't just about salvation, but restoration. That in Jesus we become more human. More human. 2 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 5, that in Christ we are a new creation, created in Christ Jesus. Not just a better person, a new person. Not just a forgiven person, a whole new person, filled with the Spirit, fully human, trusting in God, ready to worship the only one who is worthy of our worship. And so in the gospel, Jesus rehumanizes us so that we can now rightly worship what we should only, what is only worth our worship. And so worship is all of life. We pour out our whole life, and we're to pour out our life unto the only one who is worthy of our worship. Now, singing. We have to talk about singing a little bit. Singing is an expression of that worship. It's not the only thing that worship is, but it's an important thing to learn. Why do we sing? Why do we have musical worship? And why is that important? Here's going to be a somewhat controversial thing I'm going to say. I would argue that you're not actually really worshiping God yet until you are expressing that worship in some sort of way, and I would argue that it should be in song and prayer. That there's an expression of your worship that happens through song and prayer. Songs are really just prayers that we're singing, right? We're singing prayers when we worship in a gathering like this. Singing is a big deal for the church. Christians have always, we sing. Christians sing. We're singing people. It's interesting, you look at other religions and singing is either not a part of their religion at all, or it's a much smaller part. Why is singing such a big deal to the Christian faith? It's an expression of our worship. We're singing our prayers. Because how do you really believe that God is great if you don't ever tell him? How do you really believe that God is great if you don't tell him? All these other things that we're tempted to worship and give our lives over to, we talk about them all the time. We express our worship to those things all the time. C.S. Lewis, he said this, he said, I think we delight to praise what we enjoy because the praise is not merely expressing the enjoyment, but completing the enjoyment. So I'll give you some examples. My kids are 14, 12, and 9 now. But when three girls, volleyball, soccer, dance, okay? And when they were younger, they're too old now just the dog does this. But when they were younger, and I would come home, they would run to the door, right? Daddy's home, they would run to the door. And they don't just run to the door, they also would scream or shriek or yell, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. Because they're excited that I'm coming home, but they have to express that excitement. Right? They can't help. Like that's part of the joy that Daddy's coming home, is they have to express that. They have to say that. Right? We express when we're watching a game and we're excited. We clap, we cheer, we say something about it. We have to express what we are excited about, what we're worshiping. It has to be expressed. And so Christians sing. We sing even in the midst of suffering. Christians sing in the midnight hour. Right? You've got the Apostle Paul and Silas. They're in jail, and they just start singing hymns. And then, an earthquake comes and cool things happen, but they're singing. Right? We sing in the upper room on the night that Jesus was betrayed. In Matthew 26, it says that Jesus stood up and they sang hymns, and then they left to go to the garden where he was then arrested, tried, crucified, and killed. But on the night that he was betrayed, right before he is arrested, Jesus stands up and leads the disciples in song. We sing in the midst of suffering. There are stories upon stories of Christian martyrs singing as they're being martyred, as they're being killed for their faith. This was maybe 5 or 6, 7 years ago, but ISIS was beheading 21 Christians on the beaches of Libya. And, brought them out, orange jackets, I remember it. But the news reports all said that as the Christians were being killed for their faith, they were singing songs to Jesus. Christians sing, they express their worship of God being great, even in the midst of sorrow and suffering. Music is everywhere. Every culture sings, right? Every culture, any culture you find, they are singing. But Christians sing when there's an axe to their neck. Why? Because God is great, and they worship that God. And to really actually worship that God, if we really think that God is great, we tell him. God doesn't need that. God's not a narcissistic God who needs our praise and worship. It's for us. It's what rehumanizes us. I'm human. This is God. He alone is worth my worship. Everything else is tiny compared to God. And then last, singing, musical worship, is also warfare. Some of you are stuck where you're stuck, and it's a worship problem. You're stuck where you're stuck in your life, whatever it is, and it's actually a worship problem. Yes, maybe you're worshiping the wrong things, or maybe there's not an expression of your faith, there's not an expression of the greatness of God, and so you're kind of stuck in all the other stuff. You're stuck in the circumstance, and you forget how big and how great God is. There's a war going on. There's a battle for your heart. Every morning you wake up, there's an enemy that hates you, does not want you to know Jesus, does not want you to follow Jesus, wants you to worship lesser things. He wants to dehumanize you. And so there's a war going on for your heart. Music, singing, worship is warfare. It's warfare. I've seen it happen 100 times. It's warfare. Now, Satan's not afraid of Rocco's piano, and he's not afraid of the drums, but our voices and what we say, Satan is terrified by that. That when you speak truth, when you acknowledge the greatness of God, when that becomes central in your heart, then Satan hates that. He can't handle that. He can't handle what is true about God. This is why we should sing loud, because war isn't quiet. No soldier mumbles on the battlefield. We shout the praise of God. We shout the greatness of God. We tell anyone and everyone and our own hearts how great God is. We belt the glory of Christ. And so we worship, and part of our worship is the expression of our worship, which is song and prayer. Okay? Song and prayer. So we have to learn how to sing. We have to sing. We have to express that. We have to express that. I said this to my church, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks back. But I've seen, I do weddings, I'm a pastor. I've seen men at a wedding on a Saturday night dance, okay? Most men shouldn't be dancing. And I've seen men dance, men with little to zero rhythm, dance at a wedding on a Saturday night to whatever, what did I said, Poison, BBD, Sweet Caroline, whatever it is they're dancing to on a Saturday night, and they come into church on a Sunday morning, and then they're like this. They're like this. They will look the fool on a Saturday night, but won't express any amount of worship that they have to him who alone is worthy of our worship. Right? Or at a game, right? You've all seen it. At a game where fans are cheering, we're slapping high fives, and then we come before the God of the universe, who alone is worth our worship, and we sort of whisper the words that our God is great. That doesn't make sense to me. Your heart is missing something. You were made for that. You're made for that. You're being formed when the brother with no rhythm dances on a Saturday night. He's being formed in some sort of way. He's becoming someone, a guy who can't dance, and the fan that's cheering. They're becoming something when they do that. You become someone when you are worshiping God and you're expressing that worship in praise. Here's some more good news, and then I'll bring Jack and Rocco back up. Here's what's also great. We sing to God, but God sings over us. God sings over us. There's this really cool verse in Hebrews 2 where it's talking about Jesus, and it's talking about how Jesus is the worship leader. That Jesus he's leading the congregation in song. That Jesus, he leads worship. I always tell the fellows this, like Jesus was the most manliest dude in the world, and he sings, right? He sings. David, who wrote all the Psalms, killed lots of people, and he wrote songs. Nothing not manly about singing. So Jesus, he's leading worship in Hebrews 2, and And I love this. So he's singing, but then God sings over us. Listen to this, Zephaniah 3. The Lord your God who is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love, and he will exalt over you with loud singing. You think about the applause and the praise of men, right? People that celebrate your accomplishments. Some of you have been trying to live for dad saying that was good enough your whole life, and it's never been good enough. Or you've been trying to live for, everybody, coach or somebody saying good job, and it never seems to satisfy. And yet the great God of the universe, who alone is worthy of your worship, who you have resisted and rejected, has come after you to rescue you and rehumanize you, and he sings over you. He sings over you. I was thinking about some of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. Brother Jack being one of them. We got at my wedding. We had this Andrea Bocelli song, like just stunning. Or to hear my wife sing over our babies when they were younger. Whitney Houston's rendition of the Star Spangled Banner at the 19-whatever Super Bowl. I mean, just the most beautiful voices you've ever heard. Can you imagine what the voice of God must sound like? Singing over you? If this is true, and it's in the Word, I believe that it is. You have to either believe that it is or not. But even if let's just do this. Let's not even say this is true or not. God sings over you. Wouldn't you want to hope that that's true? Like, wouldn't you just hope that would be true? That if there was a God and he was this great and he would sing over me? I don't even really know what that means, to be honest. What is he singing? What is he saying? The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love, and he will exalt over you with loud singing. And so what I want us to do is I want to give us a moment to respond to God personally. Right? Worship is a response. It's this outpouring of our life to something that's worthy of my worship. It's worthy. Nothing else is worthy of your worship. So I want to give you a moment to respond to God individually, and then together, they're going to lead us to respond as a group. We don't go to war alone. We've got to sing loud so that our brother and our sister can hear. Oh, this is true about God, and this is true then about me. So here's what we do at my church on Sundays. Just give you a lot of freedom to kind of do whatever you need to do right now to get before God. This is just you and God. And so we have people that will kneel down. We have people that will stand up. People that will just walk around. Maybe you open your hands. Maybe you close your eyes. Maybe your eyes are open. Maybe you literally can do whatever you want. But typically you want to do something with your body. Something about, we tell our heart what to do by moving our body in a way. We're presenting our body as a living sacrifice. You're not just a person with feelings who has skin on. Who you are is your body, heart, mind, soul, and we're to love God with all of it. And so we just do something with our body, and we just get before God. And here's what I would just maybe have you talk to him about. Maybe it's confession of some things that you have given your life to, you have worshiped, that are not worth it. God, you alone are worthy of our worship. Nothing else is. But I've presented my body to something that is not as great as you. I've worshiped something that's not worth it. Or maybe for some of you, you kind of need that moment that I had on the beach in Atlantic City, where I needed to see how big God was. You get me. Christianity is you get God. And just see how big God is, the glory of God, the bigness of God, so that everything else would just look tiny. And so maybe just say, God, I want to see you like that. I need my God to be over all these things, bigger than all these things, stronger than all these things, better than all these things. And so now I don't know how you imagined God before tonight, or how he might, respond to you if you were to confess something. What you imagined he would say to you. And if you imagine him disappointed, I don't know. I sometimes imagine God is essentially saying, okay, good work, Jim. Now what? Like he always wants more. But instead of that, by faith, try to imagine God's response to you is that he sings. He sings to you. It said he exults over you with loud singing. He quiets you with his love. I don't know what he would sing. Well done, good and faithful servant. You're my son, you're my daughter. I love you. Yeah, I know you've been worshiping that thing. I'm better. Worship me. Come on, let's go. Let's do this thing. There's restoration I have for you. I want to rehumanize you. So, God, I pray for my friends. I pray for my brothers and sisters in this place. You alone know what they walked in here with. You alone know their stories, what they're struggling with, how far or how near they feel to you. How far or how near they are to you is somewhat insignificant in this moment. Because you are here. Your word said that you are in our midst. And you are God, and you are bigger than all things, and greater than all things, and better than all things, whether we have faith to believe it or not, you are. And so, God, in your kindness, would you just move upon us? Would you do a work in us? Would you give us a song to sing? As you express your love for us, would we express how great you are? Would that change us? If we become what we worship, God, would you lead us in worship that we might become more like you?